hardest decisions to make is which one to teach first and which one to teach second. And I'll show you my paper. I changed my mind 4 times. But last week we didn't learn. Last week we did a Sabrengia about the middle of it, right? So it was 2 weeks ago. We finished it. I was really not happy with the class.
We were.
Okay, but I wasn't. So today I made sure to prepare. I prepared so well, I literally didn't have time to down. It's my original?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Kinderlach, come and take one, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, no, a steak could be better than that. It works also. Huh? 2 minutes. Okay. So how many of you here last year? I have to talk slow. Were you here last year?
No, not in this class. She's
I mean, in my class. Last year we did Wednesday and Thursday. They were doing Friday. I'm talking about the days leading up to Har Sinai. So when I did Wednesday and Thursday, I used them as excuses. Talk about Nevuah. That's what I did. I am the teacher. I have some leeway. Obviously, I take a lot more than a little because I do whatever I want in the class, basically. Behave. Talking to my phones. You guys are starting to not work so well. I get replacements. So again, I'm not expecting you to remember it, but
You weren't here.
when I did Wednesday, which was the 3rd of Sivan, I used it as a vehicle to explain the whole idea that the Jews are witnesses for prophecy. When we did Thursday, I used it as an excuse basically to talk about prophecy. We learned a lot about Nevuah. The most important sikha of the Rebbe Nevuah I didn't teach you because it's too hard. It's a hard sikha. But other than that, all the wonderful sikhs of the sikhs and the Rebbe sikhs are really masterful. They're so good. They're so good on Nevuah. So now it's Friday, the 5th of Sivan. And we completed a sikha. It took us 3 classes, in other words, a week and a half. Second period of the first of 3 weeks ago and 2 classes last week to complete the whole sikha. The topic was explaining why the Torah is not written in order, chronologically in order. Because in Pashas Yisra you describe everything connected to Hashem giving us the Torah, and in Pashas Mishpatim we describe everything connected to us taking the Torah. It was a wonderful sikha. But in the idea that the day before Hashem gave us the Torah, there's a lot going on connected to us. There's a lot of components. One of them is the word bris, which is going to come up in the classes later, bris, covenant. Another one, which is going to be touched on today also, but it will come up in other classes in a different way, also connected to the day before. All Friday, the 5th of Sivan, is Karban. The Rebbe has a sikha where he gives a different spin, a very original spin on Moshe Rabbeinu's being a Karban day, but then was given. But one of the things which is associated with the day before the Torah was given is Gedus. The Jewish people were collectively converted. But to say it alternatively, how do we know how a person who was born not Jewish, who wishes to become a Jew, goes through a process of conversion, which involves, for a man, 4 things. You have to do bris milah, you have to go to the mikveh, you have to accept mitzvahs, and you have to make a karban. And for a woman, 3 things. She has to go to the mikveh, she has to accept mitzvahs, and she has to bring a karban. And at the times of Golus, the man is missing the karban, and the woman is missing the karban, and the Rambam paskins, that when Mashiach comes, they're going to have to bring that karban. So, one of the topics which is linked to this day is Gedus, conversion. And I'm starting to chomp at the bit to explore Gedus, not from a halachic point of view, but from a mystical, from a spiritual, a Hasidic point of view. This sikha it's so good. It's so good. I can't tell you how good it is. Now, so I'm in the middle of teaching, is it an emergency? Oh, please, I'll be done at 12:20, please remind me, I'm gonna forget. Okay. No, don't apologize. The only person I really picked the phone for is my wife. Now, that was my daughter. But she has so much respect for me. I know that if she calls, it must be important. At this time of day. I think my kids know I teach all morning. So I'm sort of chomping at the bit to explore Gatus. And I guess I'll say this now. I've sort of made the decision already that when we finish learning the Sikha, I'm going to bring you in a famous letter from the Rambam. There's a very, very famous letter from the Rambam, written to a Geret said, the name is Avadia Geret said, all the different times of the Rambam. And he asked the Rambam the question, if when he davens, he should say, the God of the God of my fathers, because he's not a descendant of Rabbi Paltiel. The letter is so beautiful. It's so beautiful. It's so over the top. The Rambam cannot say enough about a convert. He just goes on and on and on about the advantages of being a convert. So I'm probably, depending on how timing goes and my mood goes, this Sikha, I spent a lot of time this morning. Because 2 weeks ago I wasn't happy with the delivery of the class, I spent an awful lot of time preparing this one. And the Sikha is incredible. It's just so beautiful. But it sort of triggered, and maybe this is the time for us to have our conversation about Giyur. I don't know if I'm going to find enough material. I reached out to my family and asked them to do any other Sikhs about Gatus. They never spoke so much about Gatus. But I need to find material that I could sort of use here. But I'm probably going to at least read that the letter of the Rabbi said it would finish the Sikha. There's also a famous thesis. The Gemara says, Pashu Gedim Yisrael Kishmapach. Gedim are not good for the rest of the Jews. So there's a big argument what that means. And one of the answers was given by a Yid who was an Ishin, who was himself a Ged. And he writes, the reason Gedim are not good for Jews is because they're more religious than the rest of them to make them look bad. So you have that angle. But anyway, this Sikha is extraordinary. It's just wonderful. And I'm going to say something which is not going to have much meaning to you, but has an awful lot of meaning to me. What's unusual about the Sikha that really sets the Sikha on its course is that the Rebbe disagrees with a man who he probably considered his primary teacher, the Gaon of Rogatchover. Rogatchover, Gaon of Yosef Rosen, who the Rebbe knew personally. He corresponded with him, he met him. And the Rebbe's respect for his learning, Nigle, is really in a class by itself. It's in a class by itself. It's in a class by itself. The Rebbe quoted him all the time. The Rebbe passed away in 1936. Less than 100 years ago, less than 90 years ago. The Rebbe quotes him in Maimorim. The Rebbe built Maimorim on Rogatchover. And there's a rule about Maimorim that the Rebbeim don't quote any Sefer unless they believe that the Sefer was written with divine inspiration, through HaKodesh. In Maimorim, they don't even quote Kabbalah Sfarim, except for a few books and a few quotes. It's very, very, very conservative. In Sichas, the Rebbe quotes everybody. But in Maimorim, the Rebbe is incredibly liberal, very precise how he quotes. The Rebbe builds Chassidus ideas in Maimorim on ideas from the Rogatchover. That's how high a reverence the Rebbe had with Rogatchover. The foundation of the Sikha is that he's disagreeing with Rogatchover, coming with a new approach that offers something really, really wonderful. And we're going to learn it. It's going to take us time. I'm not rushing through the Sikha. The foundational question is, a person goes through conversion and doesn't read a card. How bad is that? Until Mashiach comes, and the Rambam Pachkas, every single gate in Geirus, even those who passed away and they come back to Chias HaMesim, has to bring a carbon of Geirus. So the question becomes, so what was wrong with their Jewishness prior to that carbon? This is the issue of the Sikha. So the Rogatchover has his approach. The Rebbe proves that the Rogatchover is incorrect based on Rambam. The Rogatchover also goes on the Rambam. And by the way, parenthetically, the Rebbe wrote to somebody once about this God of Ragachev who was so close to the Rebbe was so close to. Harambam Hoya Rabbi Muvak Bavada. His primary teacher was without a question the Rambam. Rambam passed away 800 years ago. And the Rebbe says his first teacher, in other words, the Rebbe would study the Rambam, and the Rambam would teach him how to learn. He wouldn't just learn. The Rambam would teach him how to learn Gemara, how to learn Tanakh, how to learn Torah. The Rebbe was an incredible mind. It's hard to understand how great a brain that Rebbe was. He was extraordinary, much extraordinary. Okay. And that's what the Sikh is about. The day before the Jewish people got the Torah, they were all collectively converted. Bris they didn't need. Because Bris they did for the Shvin Korban Pesach. Because one of the odd laws of Korban Pesach is if one member of a family is missing a Bris, the whole family can eat the Korban Pesach, including the servants. So all the Yidden went through the Sneer put into Egypt, which was only 7 weeks before. And assuming there were babies born intermittently, and I'm assuming they were, half a million ladies. So they probably did bris on those kids in that period in the desert where they were. Although the Rashi says that in the midbar the Jews did not do circumcision, but that was because they're living in an environment where the air was so still, they were worried about healing. But at this point, they were cuddling Yishuv. They were not really in the desert. They were just outside of Egypt. Went deep in the desert. So I'm going to go with the assumption that the children born between the time Yid left and the time Yid left the they had a bris. And then on this Friday, the 5th of Sivan, they went to the mikveh. They brought karbonis and the blood was sprayed on them. And we talked about this in the beginning of the class. And of course, most importantly, they did Nasa V'nishma. And one of the things that I need to do, which I don't have on my collection of sikhs, is to find the Nasa V'nishma sikha. So interesting. The most primary idea of the day before Matan Torah, which is that the Jews said Nasa V'nishma, I'm having a difficulty finding the sikha that addresses it, but it's my fault. I sort of neglected to look for it. But we'll get to it in a minute. I-Y-A, in your time. So we're going to learn the sikha, okay? Now, you know how this works. You
underline.
You read the underline, okay? But before we start the sikha, I want you to read the box. Page 161. This box is a quote from that letter that the Rambam wrote in Rabbi Paltiel, which I'm thinking to read in its entirety. After we finish this sikha. We don't need this paragraph for our learning, but it's going to contradict our learning in some ways. But I couldn't resist. So I want to start. First, we're going to learn this box. The Rambam wrote to Agir Tzedek, and then we're going to go and learn the sikha based on our rules of just reading the underlying. Okay? We begin on page 161, where I wrote the number 1. The Bahut the Tshuva for Rambam to Rabbi Paltiel. Everybody knows. Famous. The response, the correspondence between the Rambam and a Yid whose name was Evadia, who was a convert. Now, who pays attention to Shir Torah, Shabbos, and Shul? Anybody?
Yeah.
Who does it in English? Yeah? Does anybody pay attention to the Torah? Say that again. You know the Haftarah this past Shabbat of Yishlach was? Evadia. The book of Evadia. Evadia is one of the Yitzhayos, one of the small volumes of the Navi. There's a volume called Evadia is the whole book. It's 31 psukim, and we read the entire Haftarah this Shabbat. Why? Because in this past Shabbat by Yishlach, we had the showdown between Yankov and Esau. And one of the things that happened is that Esau offers to accompany Yankov Avinu. Yankov says, I'm going to take my time, but I will get to you. I will get to save it. And then Rashi asks, Chazal asks, when is Yankov the Medrash? When is Yankov going to get to say it? The answer is when Mashiach comes. And we bring the pasuk, which we say every day at the end of Yoshin, which is the last pasuk of Evadia. The Jews who will be saved at Mount Zion are going to go up to the mountain of Seir, which is, I'm going to assume it means southern Italy, to judge the Har Esav, the mountain of Esav. Hashem is going to become the king over the whole world, because then Esav is going to agree, not just that there's only one God, but that there's only one Torah. You have to pack the potato the Abish gave it to the Jewish people.
Yesterday when I
that have
was
seen-
thinking, I was thinking about it, but why how it sounds. Maybe. That's a question.
A really good question.
Yeah.
The name of this gate is also Evadia. Now, Evadia Ger Tzedek was a Navi, he was a prophet. He's the story with the Isha Achas and the Shade Nanavim, which we had Vayera, about a woman who comes to the Navi Elisha and says, my husband died and he left a lot of debt. That man who died is Evadia. But why did he have debt? Because Achav and his wife Ivero killed all the prophets. They killed all the prophets. Evadia hid 100 prophets in 2 caves, 50 in 1 cave, 50 in 1 cave. Evadia was a gay, he was a goy who converted to Judaism. He came from Edom, he came from Rome, he came from Mesa. And he snuck food out of Achav's kitchen in the time of famine to feed 100 people. You imagine? And the Chazal say that one of the beautiful things about the people then who were idolatrous was they didn't, nobody mastered, nobody informed. Imagine stealing food for 100 people every day in time of famine and nobody knew. Nobody reported it. But he collected an enormous amount of debt. he collected it. In other words, it wasn't so budget. He borrowed and then he died. So the debtors came to take his children, huh?
Okay.
This Evadia, this is the same guy. He passed away. And the creditors came to his wife and said, we're taking your children as slaves. We got to get the path to work off the debt. And she became very distraught, obviously, which went to Elisha, who was Eliyahu Navi's successor. Her husband, Evadia, was the Talmud of Eliyahu, Elijah the prophet. So Elisha told her to take the jug of oil, remember that story, and to keep on filling up the pots. That's just it's the same guy, the same Evadia. And she Caleb Reikim, I remember they were talking about it. Caleb Reikim Alphamiti. As many, they borrowed from all the neighbors, dishes and pans and bottles and barrels and whatever it was. And as long as there was a place to pour the oil kept on pouring, she sold this oil and she paid up her debts. And for act there were nayech tichi v'anois. There's a mind from Alter Rebbe, which never repeated once. You and your sons would live with the leftover after you pay all your debts. It's the same about it. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this man, who was the Ger Tzedek, who obviously chose his Hebrew name, chose the name Evadia because of the Evadia Hanovi. He was a Ger Tzedek, and he asked the Rambam a question about saying the God of my fathers. There's a lot of places in Yiddishkeit where we identify with the others of our parents. The Kingdom of God is saying, "My God, the God of my fathers." Right? We do it in davening, and the best. The highest example for this is that in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, there was a mitzvah called Bikurim, to bring the very, very first fruit that ripens to the Beis Hamikdash. And when you bring Bikurim, you say Vidim, to say a confession. And in that confession, you thank Hashem not just for the fruit, but for the land, for Eretz Yisrael. And in the confession, you make reference to the fact that Hashem has given the land to us and to our father. Again, Tzedek, a righteous convert, number one, he doesn't necessarily have a part of Eretz Yisrael. And number two, he cannot say, my father is not my father. So he asked the Rambam this question, and the Rambam was incredibly positive in it, to him about the question of saying our fathers. With the Rambam writes, I'm reading it inside now, okay? As the Emaila for the Rebbe Evadia, the level of this righteous convert of Evadia, is greater than the Emaila from Allah under the Bnei Yisrael, is greater than the advantage of all other Jewish people. While Allah Yidden, all other Jewish people, their identity, their yichus, so to use a terribly vile Chabad term, their gej, is Misyaches, we identify ourselves as the children of Yankim. Aber Gedems and Misyaches, converts are related, Lamisha Omar V'Haya Elam, the he who spoke. And the world came into being to the maybe the Hashem. The letter is long, longer than this. And at one point he says, you're also connected to Avraham Avinu. At another point he says, no, you're connected to David himself. Gerus, conversion, makes us the children, besides being the children of Avraham, it makes us the children of the Asian. Yes, for us, it's complicated. Those of us who are born Jewish, it's complicated because we're the children of Rabbi Paltiel and we're the children of Abraham. For a gay, it's simpler. I'm thinking out loud now, and I didn't think this through, which is a terrible thing, that maybe this sikha will actually speak to that difference in a strange kind of way. If I'll still remember when I'm done, and this is going to take time, that I want to raise this issue out. Maybe I'll go back to it, but I don't know. I read this paragraph because I wanted you pushing to see the letter. Okay? Now we go to the beginning of the sikha and we learn. If you want to make any comments, you're free to do so now. There's no comments and no questions. I'm reading inside. With me tonight, just the underline, okay? Through three things or three words, the word devarim can mean either or, the Jewish people entered into the covenant with Hashem. Number one, b'milah, with circumcision. Number two, with tefillah, which going to the mikvah. And number three, carbon, bringing the carbon. Now, what's missing here?
Accepting Torah.
Right, so we had that in the previous sikha, remember? That accepting Torah mitzvahs is the conversion itself. Remember?
Yeah.
There are three things you have to do that allow you to enter into the covenant, but the covenant is accepting mitzvahs. You follow? That was the sikha that we just finished, right? That we learned 2 weeks ago. Now in this sikha, we're going to split it further. We're going to put the carbon in one category, and the bris and the mikveh in a different category, in terms of this knisa lebris. So we're going to end up having three categories.
Wait, can I ask a question? Brit Milah and mikvah are in the same category?
Bris milah and mikveh are the same category, correct? And the carbon is in different. So the first category is the conversion itself is accepting mitzvahs and accepting Hashem, obviously. The three things that accompany conversion are going to also be divided up into two groupings. One grouping is going to be the mikveh and the bris milah, and the other grouping is going to be the carbon. And that's how the Rebbe is going to resolve the question about the carbon gadim, bisman hazeh, gadim nowadays, who are missing the carbon. And the Rebbe says, Milah ha'isa l'chol. The circumcision was done in Egypt so they could bring the carbon paste. Or tvila ha'isa l'chol. The immersion of the mikveh was done the day before the Torah was given. It actually says in Parashat Mishpatim, Ein hazoya b'li tefillah. Anytime you find in the Torah an idea of the blood being sprinkled on a person as part of a purification, of a service, of an atonement, of what have you, you have to assume that before they sprinkled blood on the person, that person went to the mikveh, so the Yidden went to the mikveh. And the third thing is karban, shenemen, as the pasuk says, Moshe Rabbeinu sent the lads of the Jewish people, and they brought karbonis oila. And by the way, I pointed out in the Chumash, which we learned 3 or 4 weeks ago, that they brought oilis and shlomim, offerings that are completely consumed by the mizbeach, as well as peace offering. And that's a bigger chiddush, because a peace offering basically means that you and God and the Kohen sit at the same table and eat together, as opposed to giving it away to Hashem. Says the Rambam, my day, call Yisrael the Jewish people who were the firstborn, who were the priests at that time, before the story of Egel, offered sacrifice on behalf of all the Jewish people, offered up sacrifices as a part of our conversion on behalf of all the Jewish people. The Chaim, the Doiros, says that I'm saying it to also generations later. Anytime a non-Jew now look at footnote 5. They had sense. You see? The Rambam did not write Akum. Akum means a pagan. Not every Jew, not every Gentile is pagan. In fact, at the times of the Rambam, no Gentiles, certainly not when the Rambam lived, were pagans. They believed in one God. They were Muslims or Christians. And Muslims for sure believe in one God, and we possibly even Christians believe in one God. So even though it says Akum means Allah, he's a goy. So why did the Rambam put Akum and then every goy? The answer is the Rambam didn't put the word Akum, they printed it. Because in many countries they had censorship. And they were very sensitive that the Jewish religion should not put them down. In many, many spots, I've seen it in all books of everything called Madov. Akum means idolaters. And it's not just idolaters of any non-Jew. I have seen many slaughtered pigs in Europe where it says, in the inside of the cover, the second page, open up the title page in the back. It says, any place in this book where we mention the word Akum, we're talking about the Goyim who lived a long time ago, who were a bunch of primitive pagans, but the Goyim today, they're so wonderful and we love them and they're delightful and they're all real, they're wonderful. And it's all very beautiful. Why? You got to get the book printed. It wasn't necessarily so, by the way. Many of the Goyim were very anti-Semitic, especially in Russia. But that's the way it was. So even though it says here Akum, it means Goyim. Oh. The Chayim Davis, going back to the text, the same is true of any generation going forward. There's a year to Akum, but any non-Jew will desire the incarnates the bris to enter into the covenant. And again, we know from the previous Sikha that the essence of the covenant is accepting the mitzvahs and denouncing the nishma. But the shloish of the nichem to the bris, along with the covenant, you have to have three things that support the covenant. And what are they? Tzarech mila, you have to have conversion. Utvila, you have to have circumcision. Utvila goes to mikveh. But carbon has to be favored by Hashem because you brought a carbon. Shalem, as the Pasuk says, Tachem kageh. Each one of you is the same as a convert. Just like convert. Just like my Adam, like you, the Mila, Utvila of Tzarech carbon. Doesn't the Jewish people historically in the land of Egypt became Jewish through a process of conversion, which involves 3 or 4 steps we talked about before. Af Hagel Ledoiro is the same as true of all converts in future generations. They wish to become Jewish. It's the Mila or Tvila Vatal Carbon that to be circumcision, immersion in a mikvah, and accepting and bringing the God.
Rabbi Paltiel.
Yes.
The word tefillah with 10 bays.
Say that again.
The word tefillah is 10 bays.
That means to toivel and mikvah, not to daven.
Oh, okay.
Technical point.
Thank you.
And then the Rambam says, with Manazeh nowadays, she ain't some carbon that we don't have a carbon anymore because there's no base on it. Right now, by the way, a non-Jew can bring a carbon anyplace. According to Jewish law, I told this to you a bunch of times, you can teach a non-Jew how to bring a carbon on Eastern Parkway. But you can't bring it for him and you can't physically help him because you're not allowed. But he is. Huh? You can teach him how to build a mizbeach and then to offer him a carbon and all the particulars. But in the times, once the Yidden found Har HaMoriah in Jerusalem, in Mount Moriah, in Israel, there's no carbon for the Jewish people anywhere else in the world. So obviously, we can't be a carbon. That's what, but we also have an issue of Tumatat. Like, God is not a problem. God is not Tumit. Only Yidden are Tumit. So God can be a carbon in any place because the Tumit is not affected. But the Yidden are affected by Tumit. So, but Manazeh nowadays, she ain't shown carbon and can't bring a carbon because there's no base. I make that because we're coming and all those other reasons. You become a carbon, the base for 2 things bring you into your conversion, the circumcision and the immersion of the mikvah, and of course, again, as per the sikh we just completed, the conversion itself is the nasa v'nishma. The dvarim, the things that support the conversion, in the times of the base of mikvah, there were 3 things: milah, and mikvah and carbon. Now that there's no carbon, it's just milah and mikvah. But then the Rambam adds, the base mikvah will be good. Yavi carbon, every convert is going to come back and clear some Mesa, as soon as they die, they bring a carbon in. Yes. You wanted to take a big before.
No, you just said my name.
What's your name? About here. What's your name? Oh, Li idea. Okay, very good. Okay, let's go. When Pashtus Haloshim is mash, we're studying Rambam. The Rambam is one of the most important authorities of halacha, but he's not the only one, right? According to Rambam, when you read the wording of this halacha, you come away with the following. As this man has said nowadays, this milo tefillah, nowadays, we do a circumcision, he went to the mikveh, he doesn't have to finish it enough. And it's enough, I've read an again government, they want a complete convert, there's nothing wrong with the conversion at all. There's not about the heart of the your conversion is complete, but you owe God a gift. That's all. The conversion is complete, you owe him a gift as Kishiyana Beit HaMikdash. The Beit HaMikdash is going to be built, bed, and darfen bring and a carbon. At that point, you're going to have to bring a carbon. According to the language of the Rambam is proposing that it's not like you're missing something in the Gatus. The Gatus is whole. It's just that in addition to the Gatus, you have to bring a carbon as sort of in a secondary aspect. That's how the Rebbe explains the Rambam. And you'll see in this Sikh, and I'm skipping much of it, the Rebbe Rogatchover says that you're missing, there's something deficient about your Jewishness when it comes to the Beis HaMikdash, and the Rebbe holds that the Rebbe making a mistake. It's not shot the Rambam. The Rebbe holds that there's nothing wrong with the Jewishness as a Get Tzedek in any way, shape, or form, not even when it comes to Karbonis. It's just only that you can't bring Karbonis until you bring this one here. As this man has said nowadays, is no, top of the page, it's second count. Says not it's only, but the heart of the Achiyav have an obligation of Kishibon, the Beis HaMikdash, and the Beis HaMikdash is built, you'll overcome. Now, in footnote 8, this Rambam in the Gemara in Kislev, I thought the Gemara in Yevamos. I never learned Kislev, I did learn Yevamos, and also learned Rambam. I think it's in the Gemara in Yevamos also, but in footnote 1, and footnote 1 and 2 and 3 and 8, the Rebbe references the Gemara in Kislev. Okay, now in that I'll get you in a second. In that Gemara in Kislev, this is an argument. The argument is what's the status of the Ger Tzedek was not brought in carbon yet.
And nowadays, or just the time they could bring a carbon?
Both. So in footnote 8, the Rebbe brings the Gemara where the Gemara asks the question: what is the status of a convert that hasn't brought the carbon? And he brings the word L'Degei. You see inside the third line of footnote L'Degei, one word on the line for future generations. So the Gemara says that the word L'Degei was an illusion. That for all generations, this is how it's done, even if there's no Beis HaMikdash. You follow? That word L'Degei means for future generations. Is an allusion to the fact that there's going to be a time when there's going to be no Beis HaMikdash, that you can't bring a carbon, but there still can be converts for all generations, minus the carbon. So there's an argument amongst the Rishonim. The first opinion is the Nemuch Yosef, and I underlined the word in the Nemuch Yosef. Footnote 8, fifth line was underlined. Footnote 8. Well, that messed up. You don't see footnote 8? Bottom of the page. Here, look up.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I'm reading the underlined. Avo, this is the Nebuch Yosef. This is a Yid who lived a little bit after the Rambam. He does the following. This man said nowadays, Eina Ma'kevet, the carbon doesn't mean anything as far as the Gedus is concerned. And the proof is this word. The holiday they say Ksiv. Hashem writes in his Torah. A convert is going to exist amongst you for all generations. The Gemara said that word generation means that cannot be a time when you can't have converts. That there cannot be a time that you can't have converts. That means you can have converts even when there's no Beis HaMikdash. You can have converts even when there's no carbon. Hashem knows when he wrote that there's going to be many generations when there's not going to be the blood aspect of the carbon. There's no blood aspect of the gear, the blood aspect of the carbon, which is connected to the gear. So the Nemuch Yosef translates the Gemara to mean that nowadays you don't need it. You don't need it. In other words, the Torah says When you could, you bring a carbon. When you can't, you don't have to bring a carbon, but data is all derivation. This is the Mukiya's thing. And I want to say something parenthetically, which is that there's another kind of gates. You know that? There's another kind of conversion. It's called Get Teshuv. Get Teshuv means a non-Jew doesn't become Jewish. He just formally accepts the fulfillment of the Shabbat mitzvahs of man. Specifically, he's not going to worship idols. Get Teshuv is a half of Gatus. It's half a conversion. There's a halacha. You know what the means? Charity begins at home. You have to get stuck at first with the people closest to you, and then you get stuck with others. A ger toshav is included in Atam Mechoyev L'Chayosem. A non-Jew who is officially acknowledged as a ger toshav means a convert for habitation. He's allowed to live in Israel, even though he's not Jewish, because he accepted the people of Shabbat mitzvah. The halacha is we have a biblical obligation, Torah obligation, to provide the needs for sustenance and for support for a non-Jew who's kept the Shabbat mitzvah, just like we have for a Jew. What about other nations? We also have an obligation of tzedakah on a variety of different grounds, including the Tel Hashem and Ava and the rest, but he's not your brother. There's another kind of convert. There's a convert which is not Jewish. You can't marry him. He's a convert for living in Israel. He's allowed to live in Holy Land. As soon as he has the power to decide he lives there, because he's accepted not to worship idols and he keeps the Shabbat mitzvah the name there. So that the halacha is that ain't makabel getesha b'fan of that. There's no getesha. I was in Los Angeles 35, 40 years ago at this point, and Rosh Hashiva, our Rosh Hashiva, was a big Talmud Chacham, knew a man. I met him coming to yeshiva. He very much wanted to convert, wanted to become a Jew. He was married with children, and his wife was not interested in becoming Jewish. This happened before I came, the years that I wasn't there, the middle years. But it became an impact in his marriage, from what I understood. And Rabbi Shachar said, you can't break up your marriage. He said, you'll become a half a convert for habitation. And the Rosh gave him a citation, gave him an official star that he had the status of a habitation. Rabbi Shachar later told us that he made a mistake. He was not allowed to give him that citation because ger toshav does not apply. It has to be only in times when all the Jews live in Israel. In other words, that status of Gatus has to be under very precise conditions, and if all those precise conditions don't exist, you cannot have it. This type of Gatus, the Torah puts in the word, the Doiretzechem, to say there's no time when it can't happen. You see how Torah thinks? That other kind of Gatus, the Torah says there's such a thing as a convert. He's not Jewish, but he's a convert. Like Ger, like Teshuv. Teshuv means a non-Jew has rights to live in Israel. He's sort of a half of Ger. But that status of Ger, I mean, you can keep Shabbat mitzvahs and you're a wonderful person, but to get the official status of Ger, you have to have very special conditions. But the regular Ger, that's what we like to call Ger Tzedek, as opposed to Ger Teshuv, a righteous convert, a full convert versus a half a convert. The Torah specifically adds the words to your generations to say there's no time that it cannot happen. The Nebuchadnezzar proves from that the carbon is not important. But the Rebbe holds that the Rambam disagrees with him. The Rebbe holds that the Rambam holds. I only underline the three words. Shagam bizman hazeh. You see it? That even nowadays, hakarbon ma'akber liyev ger gomen. That if you don't have the carbon, you're missing something in your status of Gator. So the Rebbe is bringing a machlokes, an arbit amongst the rabbis, that are debating a Gemara, where the Gemara says that conversion can happen any time, as the Pasuk says that is there. What about the fact that carbon can happen at any time? So the Muyasef learns from that Gemara that the carbon is not important, and the Rambam says no, the carbon is important, but you can still not get it for life. And that's what I see is about. What does the Rambam hold? How could the Rambam hold on the one hand that the carbon is a part of the Gatus, and on the other hand, the Rambam holds that there's absolutely nothing wrong with the Gatus of a Gael. Nowadays, even though it is in the carbon. You see what's going on? You see what's going on? I'm showing you what we call in yeshiva the Schwarze Pittelach. I'm showing you the nuance. Right? The first step of the nuance is the two types of Gatus. And one type of gerus has very strict rules, and if you don't have those rules, you can't do it. The other type of gerus also has strict rules, but the word of the Seichem says that you can always read it, and that's a Gemara. It's not a Rishon. This is in the Gemara itself, but it's actually Kislev, the Seichem, and I'm repeating again. I never learned this after Kislev, and then we have Mechorches. We show them how to read it. The Mokiyetzev understands that it means that the carbon is not necessary, and then says no, it is necessary, but it don't matter. Okay, now your question. I apologize for being so long-winded. You wanted to say something before?
No, one of my questions I'm still mulling on, but with the ULA, will non-Jews be able to do this type of conversion, and what will their status be?
You have conversion or complete conversion?
Half conversion.
Of course. For sure. For sure. I would like to ask you even a bigger question. Can we, in theory, after Mashiach comes, sanctify the entire globe with the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael? According to Jewish law, you can make the Beis Hamikdash bigger. You can make Yerushalayim bigger. And I think, I can't prove it to 100% certainty, but I believe that you can make it Yisrael bigger. There are rules. Everything has rules, everything has a ritual. But there's a ritual that allows you to make the Beis Hamikdash larger than it was. And if you know the Chazal, there was a man named Hordas. You know him as Herod. Herod made the Beis Hamikdash larger than it was, but he didn't have all the criteria that you need. You had to have a Kohen, a Melech, and a Navi, and a King Gadol, and a Sanhedrin. There were no Nevi'im in his time. He wasn't really a king, because he was a king unlawfully, because kings have to be from the Jewish people. He was a Gid, but he was a good Gid. So the part of the Beis Hamikdash which he expanded, which is part of the current day Beis Hamarovi, doesn't have the Kedusha of Beis Hamikdash. But you could make the Beis Hamikdash better if you do certain rituals. You could make Yerushalayim bigger, and you could theoretically make the entire world in itself. If you did that, you'd have to be Truma and not play it any place in the world. You understand? You could change the status of the whole world. You can add Kedusha to places outside of Eretz Yisrael that should become literally not less holy, literally as holy as Eretz Yisrael itself. Go ahead, you were going to speak.
Yeah, so I know that a complete conversion cannot happen after Mashiach comes. That's what we've learned.
I need to interrupt you.
Please,
Why?
I haven't gotten a satisfactory answer.
The answer is because conversion has to be done for the right reason. And the right reason is because you're unsatisfied with your relationship with God as a non-Jew. Now, when Jews are rich and powerful, all of a sudden people get very religious. You know how common it is in South America, for example, for non-Jews to want to convert to Judaism because they want to marry Jews. Marrying a Jew is going from being poor to rich, not from lower middle class to middle middle class, from poor to rich. So they say, yeah, I really love God, and to the whole thing. It's so difficult to ascertain sincerity. So that I'm paskin that in the times of David and Shlomo, they didn't do conversion because they felt that there's no way to ascertain whether people are sincere or not because the people are so rich and powerful. You understand? And I'm sure you've heard that there's an Iraqi community in the United States of America that a long time ago, their rabbi said no more converts, not in America. Now, I don't know what his reason was then, but I can imagine what his reason would be now. But when Jews are doing well, everybody wants to become a Jew. It has nothing to do with God. That's what standard of living. You know what I'm saying? You know how many people want to live in Israel? Anybody who's poorer than Israel wants to live in Israel. It's a safe country. It's a developing country. It's a growing country. And you automatically go from here to here economically. That's a bad reason to become a Jew. The problem is, if a person converts for the wrong reasons, they're 100% accounted. Conversion doesn't have any gray. It's black and white. I was once involved in a situation of a convert, and somebody wasn't happy about it, and they wanted to do the conversion a second time. So I called up a rabbi. And this rabbi said, there's no gray when it comes to conversion. It's black or white. And he refused to allow this person to go to second conversion, and it made a really important and holy rabbi really, really, really angry at me. I was good because the rock in the heart, like he says, if the conversion was kosher, don't convert again. It's not like other things. No standards and kashas. It's either kosher or not kosher. And the halacha is a person converts even if their intentions were insincere to the kosher conversion that are due. See? So here comes the question. Thank you very much. Mashiach is going to come. Correct? The Jews are rich and powerful. That's reason for Jews not to allow anybody to convert because they're converting for the wrong reasons. Or there's something else that's true after Mashiach. You probably will have the skill to see who is sincere. So it's not an absolute line. It's not, there's no law that says after Mashiach there's no convert. There's a law that says you have to make sure that people are converting because, quote, they don't feel close. Imagine a Christian or a Muslim who's religious, who prays, and has a relationship with the Eibishter. And most important of all, he's religious. He, in fact, doesn't steal. He, in fact, or she, in fact, doesn't commit adultery. He, in fact, or she, in fact, does not worship idols. He, in fact, doesn't blaspheme. You understand? He keeps the Sheva mitzvahs, all of them. And you understand that the Sheva mitzvahs are not just the negatives, those are the positives. He has a family, and he has a wife, and he has a husband, and she has a husband, and there's closeness, and they're building a beautiful, they're living the way God wants human beings to live. The Sheva mitzvahs is a lot more than 7. You know, the number 7 is just a number. There's 30 or 40. Honoring your parents, burying the dead, giving charity, yeah. And this person says, I feel like I need more. That's grounds for conversion. I have a relationship with Hashem. I daven every day. I'm a good person. I feel I need more. That's the grounds for Gedus. So the times of David and Shlomo, anybody can say whatever they want. After Mashiach comes, if you cannot ascertain the people's motivation, you could say, you know, we don't want to get into it. But if we are smart enough to listen to the non-Jews presentation, his argument, and ascertain his sincerity, why check? There's no law against the other. So I'm putting an asterisk to what you said. Do you understand what I just did? Yeah. Now you can continue your question.
So why wouldn't all non-Jews want to at least do the half conversion?
I'm assuming they will. Why shouldn't they?
Exactly.
I don't know it's a thing.
Oh, after Mashiach comes, everyone's gonna know.
Oh, they're not saying.
After Mashiach comes, everybody's gonna practice the same Torah. The Rambam writes, imagine Christians and Muslims are gonna come to understand that their religion was a version of truth that had flaw, and they're gonna get rid of those flaws, and they're gonna learn our Torah and keep the Sheva mitzvahs and have a relationship based on. All of us are gonna worship God as one language and one voice. But there's going to be a difference in Jews and non-Jews. So of course they'll go through orientation, which means they're our brothers as far as supporting them and helping them and looking after them and so on. But full Gedus, if a non-Jew comes through that they want to convert to Judaism, I mean the correct answer to the question is why? You can serve God just the way you are. And the person says that they want to be Jewish, and the answer is that God wanted to make you Jewish, and made one who was born. And the only answer is, but I feel on hold. That's the correct answer. Or to say it in the cliche, the people say all the time is, I feel very Jewish. Now, if you feel very Jewish, you have Jewish neighbors, or a Jewish boyfriend, that doesn't work. But if I feel very Jewish because I feel like I do everything Hashem expects of me as a non-Jew, and I feel I need more, that's the correct ground for Gedus. And I would argue that after Mashiach comes, we will have the ability to separate this convert from this convert. Now, our topic is the carbon, right? Because the Gemara says that although Gedus has a lot of rules, the carbon doesn't make a difference to God of the Gedus. The book it doesn't matter. But the Rambam seems to imply that it does matter. But the Rebbe's question is, how could on the one hand the carbon matter to the Gedus, and on the other hand, there's nothing wrong with the gear without the carbon? See the question? You see the question? We're going to break now?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, come back at 5. So bring me some water. Or maybe some coffee, yeah? You don't want. Yeah. 5 minutes, пожалуйста. Nobody speaks Russian today, right? You speak Russian? No Russian. What did the Russians speak? They're not Russian, they're Ukrainian. Excuse me. Okay, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Whatever you gotta do, don't worry about it. If my wife calls you about Shabbos,
Oh, your daughter will.
I'm gonna be away, so I have looking for guests. So bring some friends, bring Lee and whoever else. I mean, I don't wanna speak to my wife. But yeah, bring some guests, please.
My younger sister will be in town.
Okay. Okay, so speak to Charlotte, she's a nice lady, my wife, and I know her well. Over 35 years, and 3 months. Okay.
You want strong flavor?
No. I think I don't need it. If you send me a picture of your online banking, will you have that withdrawal, question mark?
Because Kislev with my calendar on. We're in this whole entire schedule because it's just. But I got the wrong week. This whole thing needs to be. I don't even know where to begin at this one. I wish they could come to. Shoshana. Say this, it's a Kislev. A bane. A group photo. I get just Kislev. So do know. What's it ago? Yeah, that's that's what I'm feeling around this.
Thank you very much.
I think he's coming option number 2.
Whatever. Thank you.
What Mashiach and Gorilla? I've heard that non-Jews will serve Jews, but if non-Jews take on the status of the brothers of Jews,
But you know how the Rebbe translates their service?
No,
You gotta remember that Sichas. The Rambam writes after the Sheikh comes, it won't look bad, yeah, it won't look bad.
no, it's non-dairy.
Huh?
It's non-dairy. That's why it doesn't mix as well. The real
Thank-
milk smells
thank you.
bad. That's why I didn't give it to you.
Pardon me?
The real milk
Yeah,
smells
okay.
bad.
The Rebbe had such a beautiful thing, also a wonderful chapter, volume 33, 23, we could see that. The Rebbe had the Sefer where he talks about the question of non-Jews serving, he wasn't even arguing, two opinions.
Hmm.
One opinion says the non-Jews serve Jews, another opinion says the non-Jews serve God, and the Rambam holds like the second opinion.
Okay.
And the Rebbe holds that the Rebbe agrees with the Rambam, that non-Jews don't serve Jews after Mashiach, Jews after Mashiach, Chamer serves God. Machlokes.
Um,
But even in the opinion that said that non-Jews serve Jews, the nature of that service consists of the fact that it says in Rambam that when Mashiach comes, human beings are going to know God. That's going to be their business. And Jewish people are going to know God as maximally possible. But the two are connected. But for a Jew to grow to the level of reaching the knowledge of Hashem to the maximum possible, he has to be surrounded by an environment which supports that. That's gonna be the service. But by the non-Jews knowing Hashem, we're gonna be able to know Hashem better. Or I'm mowing the lawns, for that we're gonna have that's a whole nother perspective. The service is not washing of dishes, you understand?
What,
It's knowing Hashem, so we should be able to know Hashem even better.
what sikha could I?
Chav Gimel, volume 23, Volach, it's the Vakar Katsicha. He will be Vav, Fresh, you'll find it. I remember them saying it. I didn't understand it, but I remember one line, and it was like, wow,
Love kufresh.
Kufresh. Vakar Kat,
That's a question.
at your own risk. At your own risk.
Oh, for me,
Yeah,
okay. I like taking risks. I came here, right? I'm joking.
that's a big risk.
Why sometimes the sikhs of the Rebbe are in Hebrew, sometimes in Hebrew?
It really was a decision of the editorial. You see, when the Rebbe became a Rebbe, Yiddish was Mamalosh. All right, all Jews were. Even Jews were not religious. It was an identity. In the 19, no, not in the world. In 1950, Yiddish was a thing. It wasn't only a religious thing, it was a cultural. So the Sichos were written in Yiddish because this was the language that was most comfortable to most people. People complained in those days, why is it written in Hebrew? Why my mother written in Hebrew? I don't understand Hebrew, I want to speak in Yiddish. But over the course of the Rebbe's tenure, the things changed. So at some point, they decided to change the Hebrew. The last 10 volumes of the Kutub Sichos are in Hebrew. And I understand that the Rebbe didn't make that decision. The editorial board asked him about changing to Hebrew. The Rebbe said, do as you wish. By the time I was growing up, Yiddish was waning. It no longer was what it was. But the Sichos was still there.
So the, newer ones are in Hebrew, but.
It was about fun, yeah.
You want to see a book of Yiddish folktales? It's
In
English.
Yiddish.
It's in English.
Yeah, I've seen many others.
I brought, you want to borrow?
I don't have time.
Fair enough.
I would like to, but I don't have time. Okay, who are we waiting for? Who's missing? Anili is missing.
Anili,
Her name is Amy.
British.
Either Lee, Art, or Anili. What kind of Amy?
She reported back that she likes when you mess with her name.
She likes it?
Yeah.
It's not messing with her now, with her name. Okay, let's go. Let's go. So now we move to page, okay, let's put the machines on. We move to page 162. Now you understand what I'm doing. I'm helping you navigate the Sikha. We read every word, we learned the Sikha for 4 months per Sikha, and I don't want to do that.
Thank you.
So we asked the question, And the reason it's a question is because the Rambam does seem to hold that the carbon is a part of the Gatus, as opposed to the Nemukriyesa, who doesn't think so. And yet the Rambam holds there's nothing wrong with the Gatus, even though you're missing the carbon. So the question becomes, how can you have it both ways? How can the carbon not matter and yes matter at the same time? Either does or it doesn't. That's the question. Now the Rogan Shabbat, who I mentioned to you in the beginning of the last class, who was quote unquote the Rebbe's teacher. I think it's a fair thing to say that the Rebbe considered him a teacher in Nigla. We decided that you're entitled to one of two names.
Yeah. Why?
Either Liat or Anili, but Amy's gotta go. Amy's gotta go.
You know, like, have you heard my joke?
Nope.
Hey, so you know people over Amy?
Yeah.
People over Amy?
Keep it over Amy. Right?
Yeah.
So I was thinking something a little bit different.
Okay, yeah.
If you spell Amy with an aleph, it means mother. If you spell Amy with an ayin, it means my people. Or with me, Amy, Ami, Amy. Anyway, Amy. The point is it's about me. It's not about my mother. So it's a me, it's not Lee. See, that's what the Amy is. It's about me, not about. Oh, you see, the Amy takes you from my.
Can I have this recording?
You have to ask your parents to post it. If you'll bother me, I'll send it to you. I don't want it. This is a benign joke. And by the way, if you go to YouTube for the next 12 hours or Facebook, the classes are up till they make it disappear so they can steal it.
Wait, why are they up in 12 hours?
That's how we do it. The classes are posted live and then they stay up and then we take them down and I post them again to the jury. The classes, I have two phones. One is a recorder, one is a broadcast. So the Rebbe's argument with Rogatchover. The Rogatchover's argument is that they get, you see, Judaism has 6 lives, many about 10. There's daily Judaism, there's weekly Judaism, there's monthly Judaism, there's lifetime Judaism, there's Judaism related to marriage, there's Judaism related to business, and then there's 2 more categories. Judaism connected to purity, and Judaism connected to holiness. Purity is basically the land of Israel, and holiness is basically the Beit HaMikdash. The Rebbe explains that I'm not to say the conversion is good for everything, except even for purity, but not for holiness. That's the position of the Rebbe. I thought he solved the problem of the Rambam. That the Rambam on the one hand says carbonis is a part of Gerus, on the other hand, the missing the carbon does not offset the Gerus. And his solution is that it's only for carbonis, only for kachim, for holy things when it matters, not for pure things. And the Rebbe argues with the Rebbe. Disagrees with it. And comes up with a very different solution. I'm going to read the solution right now. Let's go.
Yeah.
Page 162, the first underline. There's only one underline this. Dosas agir. Tell me when you're with me. Dosas agir. The fact that a convert is also a bachil of kaddish, not allowed to eat the meat of a carbon. You probably drink about it as a Jew. Called man and hot meat gebracht then carbon. So long as you hadn't brought his carbon associated with conversion, is the fact it's because was ad Yehud via alay. A lion has been placed to crouch on top of him. This is an expression in the Gemara. Ad Yehud via alay. The simplest example of this, it's a metaphor. You tell a person, if you want to cross the street, you can go. And then you put a lion in the middle of the street, you're free to go.
Yeah.
You understand? You let the person do what he wants to do, but you make it impossible because you're an obstacle in front of him. The VLA is often used in the context of blackmail. A person is supposed to do something else, but you blackmail them into not doing it by putting a block in their path. And the Talmudic expression is you crouched a lion on top of him, which prevents him from doing whatever it is. Now, of course, often that expression is used when someone is abusing the system. Here, this expression is being used as a part of the system. If you're a gay, you're 100% Jewish. If you haven't brought a carbon, there's a lion that doesn't let you go into the Beit HaMikdash. Your obligation. So the Rabbi Shabbos says you're convert for everything except for carbonis. And the Rebbe says, no, you're a convert for everything. But we're not letting you in until you bring your carbon. The difference between what the Rogatchover is saying and what the Rebbe is saying, in interpreting the Rambam, they both interpret the Rambam, that the Rogatchover is saying that in a certain place, there's something wrong with the conversion, but quote, only in that place. The Rebbe said there's nothing wrong with the conversion, they're just not letting you into the house. And the Rebbe translates it another word, thus haste, another word, dalet hay is not another word. The Isser Achilas Kadishim, a convert who is not brought a carbon, is not allowed the other components, is nish mitad dachastadin in Gav. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with your conversion. Nor azaytik gedach, it's a secondary thing. Which is the achiyuv to bring in a carbon, the obligation to bring this carbon, how him up on Achilas Kadishim prevents you from eating other carbons. I'm going to give you a simple example. We have a very simple religious example, Jewish example. Okay, Gatus notwithstanding. There is a mitzvah type, a category of mitzvah called mechutz l'kippur. You know what kapara means? What does it mean? It means atonement. And not kapara here. What does atonement means? Nobody knows, but that's the word we use. Okay, kapara means atonement. Okay. Usually, kapara is associated with an aveda. If it's not an aveda, that's the tshuva. And the way tshuva is done, we call it in our culture the lower tshuva, the higher tshuva. In the times of the Beis Hamikdash, it's called praklit and doirot. Praklit means you guys have a lawyer to fight your case for you. The carbon takes away the sin. And doirai means an offering of friendship and appeasement. After you bring the carbon that forgives you for your sin, you bring a second carbon to return to Hashem's grace. And like I said, in mystical terms, it's the lower tshuva and the higher tshuva. Which is why the halacha would be that a person who's done an aveda brings the carbon chatos, the sin offering. It takes away the sin, and then after it brings an oila, an offering, which is the Beis Hamikdash, as a way of return to Hashem's favoritism. So normally carbon is associated with aveda, okay? But there are carbonas associated with tumah, spiritual uncleanness, which is not necessarily our fault. People don't necessarily have control over becoming tumah, right? A woman has a baby, which is a wonderful thing. So she has to bring the carbon elders. So she has a whole bunch of halachas, right? She's tamei, she has to count so many days. Then she has to go to the mikveh. And then she has to count a whole bunch of other days, which I'm not explaining to you at the moment. Then she has to wait for the sun to set. And until the sun sets, she had this weird category, quote, she's already gone to the mikveh, but until the sun sets, she's full yom. And the full yom is now at each teruma. Once the sun sets, it's the full yom, the next day she brings the carbon. A woman has a baby, every time a woman has a baby, she brings the carbon. There's no sin. This carbon completes your tara. Okay? So a woman had a baby, yeah. So she has to wait a week or two, midday not more than a week or two. Today it's a whole different thing because one drop of blood, you count 7 days. But this is all kumis. Then I tell you, you wait, after the baby, you wait 7 days to 14 days, and the blood is still pouring, you go to the mikvah, you die. That's the halacha with that ice. But you can't go into the Beis Hamikdash and you can't use talis. Okay? After 40 days for a boy, after 80 days for a girl, she ties this. By day, not by night, by day. I mean, I tell you that just the 7 days before. I don't want to go into this because we're going to start so many problems over here, we're going to confuse you. The way we do it nowadays, the woman sees one drop of blood, she counts 7 days nikiyah. 7 shiva nikiyah, right? And then she ties it. Even if it's only for a kesef. But that's all chumash with the rabbanon for a variety of different reasons. But I'm not getting into the moment. She waits her 40 days or 80 days. She ties by day. Amida ties by night. But the Yodas and the Zohar tells by day. She waits for the sun to set. Between the time she ties over the sun setting, she's called a full year. Or whatever the particulars are about the mikvah. The mikvah will be two. She's not allowed to touch truma, even though she's able to the sun sets on the 40th and the 80th. Once the sun sets, you can eat truma, but she can't eat karbanos. The next day, or anytime she wishes, a woman has one advantage over a man. She doesn't have to be there when the carbon is brought. She can send it. When a man brings the carbon, he has to stand over the carbon. A woman doesn't have to because it's not by women. Women is leaning on the animal, so she can send. She can just literally put money in a pushka, and they'll bring the carbon for her, and she can assume that they did it for Kayed and Didame. And she's allowed to touch it. The woman titles the mikvah. She waited for the sun to set on the 40th of the 80th day, depending on whether she had a boy or a girl. She's allowed to eat too tired that she can't eat kosher. Why? What's wrong with her? Nothing's wrong with her. There's a lion on top of her. Until you bring your carbon, you call them a chutz that you put in. You're not doing any aveda. But there are certain tumah that requires a carbon to complete the tara. You understand? So a gate is the same thing. The Rebbe is saying that a gate was not worth a carbon. There's nothing wrong with the status of a Jew. There's something not letting him eat the carbon, just like a chutz kippurim. A person is tired. They went to the mikveh. The sun set. What's the problem? So this tumah, you need a carbon. And until she brings that carbon, she can't eat kosher. A gator is the same thing. Until they bring their carbon, there's nothing wrong with the gators. But Hashem says, you're a Jew, and Jews are tied to eat carbon, but there's a lion not letting you into the house to take the carbonis until you bring your carbon. So what the Rebbe is doing with this argument is, the biggest thing he's doing is arguing with his Rebbe. The Rabbi Paltiel says the gators is complete for everything in the carbonis. And none of the gators can be everything, including carbonis. But there's a lion that's not letting you eat.
Like raw
Right, like raw lion, right? Something is not letting you across the carbon. So there's nothing wrong with you, but there's a blockage between you and the carbon. It's a small difference, but it's enormous. Because the Rabbi Paltiel is saying that at least on some level, the gators is incomplete. And the Rebbe says if you read the language of the Rambam carefully, that's what they're doing. They're studying the Rambam. You read the language of the Rambam carefully, what you, my master teacher, Rabbi Paltiel, is saying is incorrect. If you read the Rambam language carefully, you would have to admit that there's nothing wrong with the conversion. Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with the conversion, so why can't we eat meat of a carbon? The answer is there's a lie and not letting. Okay, let's read those words again. Let's take another word. The second half of that paragraph of 162. The Isser Achilas Kosher, the fact that a gate is not allowed to eat meat of a carbon till they bring their carbon. Again, it says nit mitzadak hason and gad al keh. There's nothing wrong with the person of the convert at all. Not a zaytik azaf. There's a secondary issue. That there's a chiyuv to bring in a carbon. His or her obligation to bring a carbon, halt him up for achilas kadeshim. It simply prevents him from eating kosher. Okay? Kabbanis, meet the Kabbalah. So the Rebbe's position on the Rambam about Gator says that a convert today there's nothing wrong with the conversion at all. Why does he owe Hashem a carbon when Mashiach comes? Because he or she wants to eat meat of Kabbanis, and until you bring the carbon, there's a line that's not letting you eat that meat, even though there's nothing wrong with the conversion. That's the Rebbe's position. We're good?
Yeah.
Now, this is the Rebbe's explanation of the Rambam. Now comes the philosophy. And that's my business. My business philosophy. Philosophy is a really, really bad word if you know the history of intellectuals philosophy. When one scientist wants to make fun of another scientist, he says, that's philosophy. What philosophy means, it makes a lot of sense, but there's no proof for it. That's my business. My business is philosophy. But Yiddishkeit, philosophy based on evidence, the Rebbe is now going to explain the philosophy of this. Okay, now we're going to talk. We all know from the Sikha we learned before this one that the conversion is the decision to be accepted of it. When you convert by accepting mitzvahs, there's three things you have to do to support that decision, that action: bris milah, mikvah, and korban. Now we're breaking it up further. In addition to the idea that the gators of the Nasav and Ishma, of the three things that you have to do to support the Nasav and Ishma, two create it. And the third removes a lion, you see? Two creates the gator. The milah and the mikvah create the giyur. The korban removes the lion that prevents you from eating korban. And the Rebbe will now begin to explore the philosophical logic to this. We're good?
Mm-hmm.
We're good?
Yes.
Let's read. It's so, the secret is so delicious.
Geschmack.
Yes, Geschmack in English is delicious. I mean, without me, say delicious. Keep thought over here. It's fine. 25 years. He made all the shidduchim al chachamim. A girl once went to his grave and said, "Rabbi Paltiel, I need to get married." And we can meet you in the college.
Where's his grave?
It's by the oil. You gotta ask people. It's a true story. And that's the end of the time. Within weeks, she was a college. In order for one to enter into the covenant of being a Jew, that design say in Yonim always needs to be two ideas or actions. Right? In addition to the essence of the covenant, which is I will do and I will hear, there is ritual that you do to support that statement. And the ritual that you do to support that statement goes into two groups. Number one, Adobar Hamachnis, a thing that brings you into the Jewish status. With Oich an Inyan, as well as something was named to the Vorim and Akne, remove the things that stand between you and the conversion. Okay? Can I ask you a favor? Go back to the beginning of the sequel. Go back to the previous page 160. Look at the very first word that I underlined. B'shloisha devarim nichnu Yisrael lebris. With three things, or with three words, the Jews entered into the covenant. The Mila Tefillah covenant. Look at the language. B'shloisha devarim nichnasu. There are three things that need to enter into the covenant, but the covenant is none of those three things. The covenant is a fourth thing. What's the covenant? The Nasa V'Nishma. But you have to have Shloisha Nevarim that contribute to the Knesset. Now, going back to us, we're dividing up the Shloisha Nevarim Nichnasu, the idea that the conversion requires three rituals to help you enter into the covenant. We're now dividing those three things also into two subgroups. Number one, the two things that create the portal, that create the opening into the covenant. And the third, which takes away a blockage to your conversion. When Azar is the passion, let's be quite simple. If you want to bring something into a house, in this case, you want to enter into Jewish. Hanged up in them depends on the fact that aveknemen azach. Sometimes, the first thing you do is pick it up from the street and carry it into the house. Well, in addition, you have to aveknemen azach, take away something, and in this case, it's called dem ari, the proverbial lion, the imaginary lion. Was gefinter bechutz that stands at the entrance to this home, and then lost nicht the knisa lebayit and holds you back from entering into this home. Was that aveknem with the dover hama'ak, removing the obstacle that does not allow you to enter into the home is nicht a chelik from dover ula machnis. It's not a part of entering into the home. It's just something you got to get out of the way. You see what I'm saying? So the Rebbe says there's the home itself. That's the year. There's the entering into the home. That's the Mila and the Mikvah. There's removing things that are stopping you entering the home. That's the Karban. We've not just divided Gatus into four things. We've divided Gatus into three categories. Category number one from the previous Yichah, the Gatus itself. Category number two, the things that bring you into the Gatus. That's the Mikvah and the Bris, and the circumcision. And category number three, you're removing something which is not allowing you into the Gatus, which is the Karban. Now, let's read the next paragraph, and we're going to read inside what I just showed you in the previous page. You with me? There are three things or three words that allow the Jewish people to enter into the covenant. Now, the Hebrew word Kislev means to go into. Going into is different than what you're going into. You're going into a house. The house of the Gators. Entering into that home is the support of the house. So the three things that you need to enter the home. Or nicht shloisha devarim. Or it's not that the three things create the gators. No. The three things support the gators. The Rebbe here repeats the same point he made in the Sikha before this one. Shloisha devarim nichel the bris. The bris is none of these three things. The bris is something else. The bris is a fourth thing. The bris turns out to be the house of an Ishma. But in order for the bris or the gatus to occur correctly, you have to enter into the gatus. The entering into the gatus requires these 3 points. Chazak. You with me? You understand?
Yeah.
So there's 3 things that allow you into the gatus. The gatus is none of those 3. It's a 4th idea, or it's a first idea. But we're breaking up the 3 things that allow you to enter the gatus itself into these 2 categories. What brings you in and what takes away an obstacle from getting in. Well, the knisa the bris. The entering into the covenant with God, the becoming Jewish, is given to them, happens through the fact, but it's a Yitzraf and Shleisha, the 3 things happen, namely, Milah, that means circumcision, Milah, you went to the mitzvah, by first covenant in the covenant. Aber they by staying from say Sugim, there are 2 categories of ideas associated with entering into the bris. Aleph. Dover HaMachnes the bris, but actually completes and enters into the covenant Judaism, which is Mila or Tzvila, circumcision, and base Hasfara Ta'ariyu in the obstacle, Hadover HaMa'akav Saknisa, this that prevents us from entering in, which is the covenant. You follow? Not complicated, it's not that hard, right? Now turn to page 164. The Hasbara, the explanation, in the Mechilik, in the distinction, between Nilo Tefillah, the circumcision and the immersion in the mikvah, which in them carbon of the carbon is as dafil Milo Tefillah and Machnes the Milo is. Emphatically, specifically, the circumcision and the immersion of the mikvah bring you into the covenant. Mashiach the carbon, while the sacrifice is Hafarat Ari, remove the lines and put from the outside. Dover b'chutz ma'akav, something outside which is preventing you from becoming a Jew, is to lift it up. Okay? Now the question becomes why. It becomes why. And the answer to this question is going to be wonderful. Okay? And I'm going to tell you now the kernel, the seed of the answer, and we will continue this next week on Wednesday. Now tell me, when is Mechon Chana's vacation for Hanukkah?
You don't have it. We're not having, you don't have February 6 days.
Say that again.
I said we were having 6 days, but when the program is after the conference,
Oh.
then we don't have it.
So next week, Wednesday, and the Wednesday after is regular school. Okay, fine. Next week, Wednesday, not a problem for me. The Wednesday after, I'll have to see. Fine. So I'll be back next week, okay? I'm just gonna tell you the kernel of it all, okay?
Okay.
If it's Hashem, you're gonna get married one time for a whole long lifetime with a mensch. You're gonna join with him and actually become best friends. I was reading the girls yesterday, a letter that the Rebbe's father wrote to the Rebbe. 3 days after their wedding. You should become of one heart and feel like one person. He writes so beautifully to his children, the Rebbe, they should join together in one marriage. It's really very beautiful. The Rebbe's father. Anyway, you're gonna get married, okay? Without when we got married.
Kernel of law. And. Hold on.
And when you're gonna get married, you or your customer, both of you are gonna learn a Maimon. And the Maimon is gonna talk about what happens to a person when you wake up in the morning. It's based on a Chazal that says that when a person wakes up in the morning, his neshama is only in his nostril.
Sure.
And getting up in the morning is to make the neshama radiate from your nostrils to your arms and your legs, your fingers and your toes, and your hair and your skin and your nose. You wake up in the morning, the neshama is only in your nose, and that's not good. You got to spread it out to the whole body. You follow? How do you explain that philosophically, mystically? When you wake up in the morning, Maidani, the neshama way, the bechida, the highest level, right? But that's not enough. You have to be a Jew in your actions, Jew in your mind, Jew in your heart, Jew in your senses, Jew in your behavior, and this takes bringing it out from the nose to your arm to the follow.
Yeah.
So there's an argument. The kernel of Jewishness is having the neshama in the nose. That's the deepest thing. That's the key. The radiation of Judaism having you know your you're saying very important. Everything is Jewish. Conversion is the same thing. It's converting your essence and having that converted essence radiate to your whole body. When you convert your essence, you're a convert. You're not a complete convert if you bring it very aspect of your life. That's the difference between the mikvah and the milo, which converts you in your essence, and the carbon, which causes the conversion to translate very aspect. And the Rebbe is going to explain the times of Golus. Nobody really brings Judaism in every aspect of their life, only in the times of the Rebbe's time. Even those who are born Jewish don't really bring Yiddishkeit in every aspect of their life unless Mashiach comes. And that's the carbon that the gate is missing. I think it's delicious. I will see you in a week, and we will continue this conversation. Halak, talk to me loud.
Wait, we have it's a minhag, we did this manner.
Yeah, it's the mind which the previous Rebbe said at every wedding.
When? On the day of the wedding?
But it was fun.
Oh, what about together?
No, the Chassan says it. No?
Oh, that's the, oh, that's what I wanted to
It's in that moment.
Rabbi Paltiel, based on what you just said, then are we all, people who are born Jewish should also bring a carbon then by?
We don't have something blocking us.
Oh,
But the baby, we have 1,000 carbonas.
yeah.
Okay,
say.
you're welcome. That was delicious. I thought it was delicious.
You happy this week?
Much happier. It's